Hello and thank you for visiting my YouTube channel. In this video I'm going to cover the topic that is what I like to call fake 3D. It's basically the art of creating relatively simple objects in a 2D space that actually appear to be 3D. Now I have a few examples here, but what we're really going to be focusing on is creating things only around the complexity of this box. As soon as things get more complex, like this 2-point perspective example I have, the case for using this skill, this fake 3D, diminishes. Okay, so first off, I want to go over some points. That is, why would you even want to do this, and some reasons not to do this. So let's start with reasons why you'd want to do this. The first thing I have typed out here is that depending on what you're drawing, it might actually be way quicker than actually drawing in 3D. This very much applies to simple objects. Let's take this box for example. To actually get the colors the way I want it, the line styles appearing just like I want it, I can do this way quicker in fake 3D. As the complexity of the object increases, this applies less and less. There is a kind of like a turning point, or a crossover point, I should say, where it's not practical to make something in a fake 3D. So point number 2, you might simply not have access to a 3D modeling program. You might have AutoCAD LT instead of full and not have the 3D capabilities. So that would rule out even doing something called flat shot, which I'll show you guys how to do towards the end of this video. So my third point, if you only need a simple, like a very simple 3D depiction and can't justify the time to learn or the cost of a 3D modeling program, so a lot of us have AutoCAD full, but we never do the 3D modeling. So if you just need something like something simple like a box, or slightly more complex, and you don't have any 3D modeling skills and you don't plan on doing a lot of 3D modeling, you might have a case for fake 3D. 4, yeah, I guess 3 and 4 I basically covered, going more in depth with my first point, but you know, when you get your colors and stuff onto your model, a lot of the newer 3D modeling programs are really amazing, but sometimes it's hard to get your shades, your colors just exactly right, and you can do it quicker and faster with a 2D representation of a 3D object. And my last point here, number 5, is it's easier to annotate something that's actually 2 dimensions. So you could either model something relatively complex and do a flat shot, and then just plop it into your 2D space and have your arrows coming off of it. And I'll show you what I got going on over here. I'll talk about this a little more in a bit, but it's actually just an image I've attached of a 3D model that I did in a different program in Rhino 3D. So okay, we have the reasons covered as to why you'd want to do this. Now let's cover some reasons why you don't want to do fake 3D. So let's say you're keen on learning 3D modeling. There's some really good, even free 3D modeling programs out there. If you can't afford AutoCAD full, there's AutoCAD clones, I guess, that will allow you to do 3D modeling. Those are much cheaper. Yeah, so there's a lot of options out there available. So to be honest, I wouldn't let the cost be a barrier towards learning 3D. It'd more be the whether you can get the investment back from the time you spend learning to actually do the 3D modeling itself. But yeah, so if you're keen on learning 3D, do everything, even simple stuff like this. It's just a column, a base plate, a concrete pedestal. There's not much to it, but even that will help you get faster at 3D modeling. Point number 2, multiple views are required. So yeah, I have a nice looking house or box, but what if I wanted to show like all 4 sides of it, you know, and I wanted to rotate around and everything? It's too much fake 3D. Just do it in real 3D. It's gonna be quicker in such a situation, right? So point number 3, let's say you need to calculate data such as volume or surface area. There's some benefit to doing that. The 3D model, whether it's AutoCAD or most other programs, they're going to allow you to get that data. I know Rhino 3D is really good for extracting data such as volume, surface area, crap like that. You know, you can do it all, and you have tons of different units you can choose from, right? So your fake 3D depiction, you're not going to be able to do that. And number 4, you can model something in another program, and AutoCAD and most of the other newer CAD programs, the performance when you attach stuff like images, PDFs, the performance is actually way better than it used to be. So maybe a few years ago this was not your best resort, but now I would say it's a viable option, just attaching like a nice colorful 3D image, right? That's one thing you can do. And of course I mentioned that it is a 2D image, but remember I have modeled that in 3D in another program. So I'm going to kind of half count that as not truly really being fake 3D as it pertains to what we're going to cover in this video. Okay, so before we get going on the actual techniques, I just want to talk about perspectives a little bit. And just to let you know, we're not going to do anything like this. This actually took a long time to draw, and I only drew it as kind of like a demonstration, I guess, to kind of visualize what we're after here. What we're going to be drawing is going to be looking a lot more like these boxes right here, right? But anyways, when you do a 2-point perspective, and the same would apply for if I had a 3rd point for my vertical lines, but I'll get into what that's all about in just a second here. You know, all your lines have to originate from the same point. Same with these lines, right? So we want to mimic that in our own way, but make it way easier on ourselves, because if you actually have to draw every line and trim, it's horrible. I did not enjoy drawing that. So to mimic a 2-point perspective, but where the points are really, really far apart, so far apart in fact, and I'll just show you what I mean here. I'm going to draw this line like that, then have this line come like that. I'm going to fillet those, and it should be 0. So let's say that's way over there. I could even drag that further out. And if I did, our eyes would never be able to tell that these lines are not in fact parallel, right? These lines are parallel, but for all we know, they could converge like 100 kilometers away. So in essence, you create a 2-point perspective just with your points really, really, really far apart. And this could almost be a 3-point perspective too if we wanted, right? If we had a 3rd point down here or something like that, right? So anyways, I'm going to move on to my next section here. Simply maintaining parallel lines gives you a very decent representation of a 3D object as long as it's simple. So I have an example here, and this, to my eyes, looks a little bit skewed. So we're going to say, okay, let's not do that. Let's just make a very simple 3D representation and just keep one of our parallel line directions vertical. So we have this direction of lines, right? All those are parallel. We have this direction, those are parallel. And then we just make sure to keep one direction vertical. And yeah, so to my eyes at least, that looks pretty 3D. Okay, so with all that talk about perspectives out of the way, I'm just going to quickly show you probably the most convenient way to do like a fake 3D, and that's using the orthographic features that AutoCAD has down here. And you have all these different isoplanes. So let's start with isoplane top. I'm just going to draw a line, draw another one. Let's make those meet. Let's change that to, let's do right. So we're just making a square, right? Nothing special. So with this, you're really only given the option to do this in one direction. And there's ways to do it in other directions. I'll get into that in a little bit. Let's go back to isoplane top. Just to make this look a little bit cooler, we're gonna so if you draw an ellipse, you might notice there's a option for iso circle. So we're going to use that. I'm going to put this roughly in the center. Go like that. And there we go. So now if I want this, let's say this is a washer plate. Let's make that. Let's actually make that ellipse a little bit smaller just so it actually looks like more like a washer plate. I can just copy that down that distance, trim it. Now we got like kind of a 3D-ish looking object. So yeah, you're kind of confined to the directions that it gives you. And I do find the isometric drawing, I guess, or whatever it's called, what they like to call that. Yeah, isometric drafting it's a little bit slow. So I'm just going to click to turn it off. And you know, if you want, and this of course applies if you also want to have your parallel lines running at different angles. You don't have to stick to those angles. I could just go like that, right? That's my one direction. Here's my other direction. I just make sure I maintain those parallel lines, right? And of course, if you stick to the rule of keeping one direction vertical, things should work out looking pretty good. So now if you go your own direction, you got to remember that now you can't use that isometric ellipse. Obviously the option isn't even present. So you have to play around and see what works best. You might do that. You might try to rotate it. And overall, you'll be able to find something that looks relatively close to, you know, where it should be. It might take a couple tries, right? And this isn't quite right. And as I was mentioning, we're just doing our best representation of a 3D depiction of what an object might look like, right? Okay, so one key aspect of making something that's not 3D look 3D is the shading. We're going to go over that quickly. So I'm going to go to hatch. Hopefully it lets me actually draw my hatch the way I want it. Okay, it's working. I had to restart the video because my hatch just filled in the middle circle, eh? So you can edit all this stuff through your properties. I'm actually going to turn my ribbon on because I'm going to need some of the contextual menus. But I'm going to first just click everything. I'm going to pick a color. Let's make this. Let's do blue. So there's a couple ways to adjust your shades. You can just use the transparency and just make it incrementally more transparent. Or if you want your object to blot out whatever's behind it, you just have to, you know, pick different shades kind of manually, right? So I could go like that. Maybe what I'll do with this one is just make it actually darker. Go like that. We're going to do a gradient in just a little bit here. And when you do the gradient, it's good to, I guess, kind of load up your custom colors with the colors you're actually using to shade your flat surfaces. And you'll see what I mean in just a second. So I'm going to go see if it'll let me scroll down to the gradient there. And yeah, now I can just select those colors that I had that I've just used. So you could play around with that. Maybe I should make this not quite as bright. But yeah, so that's basically how you'd shade, I guess, the inside radius of the circle. It doesn't look perfect, but this is not a tutorial on perfection. It's more just a quick and easy way to kind of make 3D-ish looking objects. So I guess we could also do the hidden lines, right? And that's pretty easy. All you do is, I just have my hidden line layer, right? If we wanted to make this hidden, we just copy it down. Probably draw a line from here to here. Same here. We'll go like that. We'll trim it. Now I'm just going to use, match properties. Get that, that. So yeah, so we have a nice little depiction of a washer plate. That wasn't too hard, and to be honest, I could model it faster in 3D, but to get the colors exactly as I want them to appear is actually faster doing fake 3D. Okay, so now I'm just going to go through some of the stuff in this drawing, and I'm not going to draw it in real time. I'm just going to kind of explain how I went about drawing it, just so you can get some good insights and tips as to what you can do with these skills you're learning. So first I'll talk about this I-beam section. So I just have a hatch with a background and the steel pattern in it. With the fillet and how it blends into the two surfaces, so each surface has its respective color, right? So what I do is I just use a gradient hatch. It starts with this color and ends with this color. So that's how you can get like a nice blend between, I guess, a semi-curved surface. So yeah, you can see how I got like a fillet here. So I'll just draw an L shape just to show you how I was able to create that. Just do that. We'll do the ellipse, iso circle option. Now there might be a faster way to do this, but I got to get the circle just placed exactly where I need it. There we go. I swear I was faster at this when I was not recording myself, but that's how it goes. So yeah, if you do that, now you got your fillet. Okay, so that's the I-beam. And of course, remember, if you want to make it 3D, you just copy it vertical direction. And there you go. Okay, so I got this bolt right here, right? And this is actually an example of a mix between fake 3D and real 3D, because I actually drew this bolt in 3D and used flat shot, and then that gives you like a, let's see if I can explode this and show you. No, undo that. Just gives you like a 2D kind of a print. I'm not going to talk about it. I'm going to show you that at the end of the video. But yeah, so even if I depicted this in 3D, I'd still have to mess around with the shading, and if you get good at shading stuff in 2D, you can do it way quicker and kind of achieve the overall look that you want, right? So I think this looks pretty good. There's different kinds of gradient hatches, and you can leverage them to your advantage when you want to make something look 3D, but when it comes to this point, another good thing for this is actually landscape drawings and plans, so not really 3D, but just making trees and bushes and stuff like that. But yeah, you can make spheres, shapes like that. And I'll move over here and just show you this. Yeah, this is just something modeled in Rhino 3D. It's literally just a screen clip, so the quality of the image isn't that great. But now you just have something that's 2 dimensions. So it could be a flat shot, which would also allow you to snap 2 lines if that was important for you. But yeah, so it's just a flat representation that you can easily fit within your model space. Whereas if I was drafting something that was actually 3D, you have to fuss around with it a little bit just to get it to fit in with your other elements. So it's actually hard if you have like a 2D plan of a building or whatever, and you want to show, like, say something like this, and you want to show it in 3D, and you actually model it in 3D in your drawing that's mostly 2D. That's really hard to manage. So generally, if you have a 2D drawing, you want everything to be flat and everything to be 2D, right? So that's pretty simple. I'll quickly cover, I guess these are pretty much bonus tips. I guess they count as fake 3D because I'm making stuff look like it's 3D. But this is just text copied wherever you want your shadow to be. Change the color to black unless you want your shadow to be a different color. Transparency, put it to whatever, I'm doing 75. Draw order, back, and now you have kind of like a 3D-ish looking text. I like doing this with blocks, kind of where I put my my text boxes, just so they lift off the page a little bit. This pink line you might see, that's actually my no plot layer. So when this plots, it'll just have this nice little shadow behind it, right? So that's another kind of a fake 3D-ish tip. With this block, I'm able to change the mask based on the color I choose for the block, but everything else in the block is determined by the layer of the objects. Yeah, so I put that by block instead of by layer. But yeah, so that's all there is to that, really. But yeah, anyways, all this stuff is kind of, it's more graphical than fake 3D, but I just wanted to squeeze that in here. I might do an entire video just on using AutoCAD to kind of do like graphics, flowchart, stuff like that. It works really good for that. There's better programs for it, but if you're really good at AutoCAD, you'll be able to create stuff like that faster in AutoCAD and have it look not too bad compared to programs that are more geared towards that, right? Okay, so anyways, I'm gonna tilt my space, just hopefully my program doesn't crash. So that's another reason you don't want to do your 3D modeling in your 2D space, is because it really I can hear the fans in my laptop. It's like kind of a gaming laptop, but an older one, and they're just going full blast now, right? So I'm doing this. I'm just going to quickly show you flat shot with a small example. So I'm going to do a polygon. Let's do 6 sides. Let's do extrude. Okay, I'm going to set my display. Oops. I think conceptual should work okay for this. Let's do a circle. Extrude again. I don't use AutoCAD for a lot of 3D these days. That's my my program of choice is Rhino 3D. But I found working in Rhino 3D has actually made me better at 3D modeling overall. I just can't remember all the command names in AutoCAD. Okay, so we have a little bolt. Now you can draw that in fake 3D, but it's a pain, and yeah, I just don't want to go there. So what we're gonna do, when you do the flat shot, your view cube, I'm gonna close the ribbon. I don't think we're gonna need it. Ribbon close. There we go. Just move my screen a little bit so you can see the view cube a little bit better. So if you want to maintain a consistent look, be sure to utilize your options available to you on this view cube, right? Because if you're and you can save views as well. That'll make this tutorial take too long if I do that, though. But yeah, for me, I'm just going to click here, And that gives me a really good orthographic view of this bolt I just created. I'm going to select it. I'm going to do flat shot. Insert as a new block. Let's see what we got here. Obscured lines. That'll show the hidden lines. I'm going to turn that off just to keep things but yeah, this is a really good option because you can do the by block, of course, and you can choose your line type. So you can make a really good, I guess, 2D representation of a more complex 3D object with a flat shot. It works great for that. Tangential edges, I'll explain that in just a second because I don't really run into that situation with this simple bolt that simple nut that I just drew. Okay, so just plop that down there. It's just asking me for scales. I'm just going to hit enter. 1, 1, 1. UCS, world, top. Oops, UCS, world, top. Oh, you got to be kidding me. UCS, oops, dash view, top. Is that going to do what I want? Thank God it didn't crash. So yeah, my AutoCAD, my 3D skills are getting a bit rusty because I do most of my work in Rhino now. So that took a bit longer than I was hoping for. And you can see how laggy my AutoCAD is now, right? So you really want to separate your 2D and 3D. I think that's kind of the big take home here, so to speak. So yeah, I didn't actually create this bolt in 2D. I did the flat shot. So that tangential edges option, I'm pretty sure that would just, so if you have like a fillet or something, the beam's a better example here, it would probably just draw these lines. Okay, so that's basically the best overview I can provide in around 30 minutes for creating the illusion of 3D in AutoCAD. We covered how to create fake 3D completely in 2D. I showed you quickly how to do the flat shot. And of course, early in the video, I mentioned that, especially with the newer AutoCAD and other CAD versions, they handle image and PDF attachments a lot better. So simply attaching a 3D image, this one which was done in Rhino, for example, is a very viable option. So yeah, hopefully you're able to benefit from all these tips and tricks that I've shown you. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, and with that, all I can say is thanks very much for watching.